it's time to get quiet before him and to be still. Another piece of this puzzle is to commit to God. Commit your dreams, commit your visions, commit your career, your family, your talents, your gifts, your spirit. Commit it all to God. Because by doing this, you're telling God you trust him. You trust him with your life. You trust him with the decisions he's going to make for you. Your precious valuables, the things that mean most to you. Even the things that you felt identified you. But he will develop the person in you that you never knew existed. These are your diamonds. The rich deposits God makes in your life that would never have been found if you did not experience that life in the desert. If you did not go through the test. When God allowed you to endure the abuse, he deposited strength. When God allowed you to deal with the pain of betrayal, he deposited courage. When God allowed the man or woman to strip you of everything you had, even the person you were, he deposited resilience. And when God allowed you to press through the struggle, not knowing how you were going to make it, where that next dollar was going to come from, how you were going to get gas in your tank, how you were going to make it to work, how you were going to feed your kids when you only had enough for one. He was depositing faith. These are your diamonds. How many of us today are going through, so caught up with the distraction, we forget to take our treasure with us? God guides you through the desert, but you leave the diamonds in the sand. This is why we're left in this barren place. This is why we're still in the desert. We leave behind the treasure. It's not until we begin to pick up our treasure, store it in our hearts, that we will be able to be delivered from the desert. I have a couple more things to say, and then I'm going to take my seat. But let me share this word of encouragement. Moses was given an assignment. His assignment was to lead these people, his people, out of Egypt. God did not say it would be easy or without resistance. The Israelites complained every step of the way. They were hungry. They were tired. They wanted to stay. They should have just stayed in Egypt going through all of this. And why would God deliver them from Pharaoh only to imprison them in the desert? If you review the book of Exodus and Numbers, you will find that the Israelites, when they were hungry, God fed them. He provided food. When they were thirsty, they drank. When they needed a way out, God opened a path. But no matter how many times God provided, delivered, and came through, they always found a reason to complain. For this reason, an entire generation passed away, never setting foot in the promised land, which was literally in their view. Sometimes we're so busy being angry, complaining, highlighting the negative in the situation, that the very thing God promised us is in our eyesight, but we just can't see it because, you see, it's past, we allowed our negative insight to now be our vision. If Moses had listened to the complaints and began believing them, the next generation would have never made it. They would have still been in the desert. It was because he did not listen that they made it to the promised land. Although Moses never made it to the promised land himself, the assignment he was tasked with allowed those behind him to prosper. Did you get that? Okay. His assignment was not for him, but rather those that followed. So as you go through and are faced with your challenges, know that sometimes your assignment is not for your benefit, but for the prosperity of others. What is to your benefit, I will tell you, is your obedience to God's instructions, which opens the door. He opens the door to blessings and favor. Your desert is usually the path to your promised land. You see, I read a book earlier this year called The Dream Giver. It was by Bruce Wilkerson. And it was for leadership conferences that I attended earlier. This book was truly an eye-opener regarding how we treat the dreams and visions God gives us. In reading the book, I was forced to reflect on a few details in my own life. How these things helped me and grew me and was proof of my spiritual growth. There was a particular chapter that talked about how we react to God when we don't see or feel His presence, especially when we need Him most. Exploring this chapter made me realize that what I've done in the past is not worth what I'm doing right now and what I know now to do. Last month we had a guest preacher, Dr. Nathaniel Brooks, and he always says, when you know better, you do better. Today we learned how to deal with our spiritual blind places. So now let's move forward and do the things that God has instructed you to do. Not only should we think that all of this can relate to the being in this place. We have struggled with this experience. We'll eventually encounter this walk with Christ. But once you get to the other side, you'll be able to recognize your spiritual growth and understand why you had to go through that place, why you had to deal with those situations in order to be where you are now, why you had to be placed in the desert in the first place. I have one more thing I want to share with you, and then I'm going to take my seat. Yesterday, me and my son went to Sights and Sound Theater, and we saw Noah. And there was a particular scene in the play that Noah was on the boat, and the storm had come. There was no more rain. There was no more rain on the outside. But he was on this boat with his family, all these animals, and there was no land. There was no place to dock. So on the inside, chaos started to break out. His wife was bickering and nagging. His kids was fighting. There was an elephant having a baby. I mean, it was crazy inside the ship. Although the storm was over outside. How many of you know sometimes when things calm down in life, in school, at work, your family, the inside starts acting crazy. It gets crazy on the ship. It gets crazy on the boat. But Noah was frustrated, but not because it was crazy on the boat. He was frustrated because he kept going to God and praying to God. God, what's going on? I need you to give me my next instruction. I did everything you told me to do. I built this boat. I put my family on it. I got 2 of every kind. Now I'm here and you're not here. You're not talking to me. What's going on? But it didn't stop Noah from doing what he was instructed to do. It didn't stop him from continuing to have faith. It didn't stop him from continuing to pray. Continue to go before the Lord and have quiet time. It did not stop what God had already taught him to do. Okay. So they're on this boat. And so he has a dove, and he sends the dove out. But the dove comes back, and the dove doesn't have anything. So more time, more stillness, more quietness, more frustration, but it keeps pressing. Again, weeks later, he sends the dove out again. But this time, the dove comes back with an olive branch. And that means there's hope. So his family's excited, the animals are excited, and his wife gets so excited, she jumps up and said, "Glory be to God, release all the animals, land is near." Noah said, no. God told me when to get on this boat. So I'm waiting for God to tell me when to get off. What you have to understand is, don't get anxious when you don't hear from God. Don't get above yourself or beyond yourself. Continue to do what God has instructed you, imparted in you to do. Continue to pray. Continue to to worship. Continue to tithe. Continue to pray for your pastor. Continue to do ministry. Continue to put your face before the Lord until you hear his voice. And lo and behold, in the midst of Noah doing what he was supposed to do, what God had already instructed him to do, one morning, God spoke and said, Noah, you are released. You didn't get that. He said, Teresa, you are released. He said, Beverly, you are released. Hallelujah. He said, Gregory, you are released. You don't move until God tells you to move. Because his time is the right time. So don't worry about when everybody else is doing stuff. You wait to hear from God. Because when we move before God speaks, we mess it all up. Had no one had moved and let the animals go, they would have drowned. How would God put all these animals back on the earth? He would have destroyed his own family. So we need to wait and be still and listen to God. And although you feel like you're in this barren place, in this desert, where you don't hear him and you don't hear his voice and God, what's going on? You continue to do the things that God has instructed you to do. But I have one more question. One more question. In doing these things, and when you get your release, the question to you today is, are you going to take your diamonds? Are you going to take the faith that God put in you while you were going through? Are you going to take that obedience God had placed in you while you were in the desert? Are you going to take the joy? Are you going to take the peace? Or are you going to leave your diamonds behind? And then we wonder why we're still in the desert. Are you currently experiencing a spiritual desert? Are you in a place that you have not heard from God? Do you feel like God has left your side? Are you feeling abandoned, destroyed, defeated? Are you hungry for the bread of life and thirsty for the living water? Hallelujah. If there's someone here today that are going through these things, if there's someone here today that does not know God, but wants to experience this living water, wants to get fed with this bread of life, tired of being in this barren place, stand to your feet because we're here for you. If you don't have a relationship with God today, you don't have to leave this place without having one with